All right, everybody, welcome to the special holiday edition of the Podcast, the world's greatest podcast. We're here with episode 20 with Christie Buck of Christie's Chips. These are pretty fabulous. I've had more than my share over the past few weeks. I've been making the rounds with some of our customers, and they're pretty addictive. They taste great. The packaging is really cool, but there's always more than meets the eye. Christy, I'm interested to hear what was the genesis for the brand? How did you get into this in the first place? And what's the journey been like?
Yeah, and thank you so much for having me on the podcast. I'm super excited to be able to tell a little bit more about the background because Christie's, as we all know, potato chips are like one of the most classic snacks, and I think there's always room to improve upon the classics and cater to specific groups of, consumers and whatnot. So thank you so much for having me. I created Christie's. So Christie's is a potato chip brand that's crafting those nostalgic all-time favorite flavors like sour cream and onion in better, more inventive ways. So I took the sour cream and onion and I made it fully plant-based. So what people might be asking is, aren't potato chips plant-based? And what, if you're not plant-based or you're not lactose intolerant, you may not have noticed that a sour cream and onion has dairy powders. So it's got cheese powders, buttermilk powder, milk powder. And so if you're lactose intolerant, any flavor like that is going to hurt your stomach. If you're vegan, you can't have those certain flavors. And so that's where the whole brand began, was with the sour cream and onion. Nobody was making just a dairy-free version. There were tortilla chips and puffs, but there was an opportunity to cater to that specific consumer, but appealing to all, because I created a flavor or a product that's less calories, it's less sodium, it's made with better ingredients, and it has no dairy powders. So that's where the whole brand began, with the sour cream and onion, and we've expanded into 7 flavors. They're absolutely delicious. I can't wait to tell you more about those, but I'll go back to kind of my background and the trajectory of like how we got to making a product like potato chips. So back, I don't know, 10 years ago or so, I went to culinary school. So food was my absolute passion. I was in a university in Indiana, that's where I'm from. It's at IU. I didn't go to, I wasn't paying attention in class, and I was just reading cookbooks and cooking for everybody. It was just my absolute passion. And a buddy of mine, one day, he like put this idea in my head, because being a chef was always kind of like that childhood pipe dream. It's like, what do you want to be when you want to grow up? Or when you grow up? And I said, like, a chef. And it didn't really feel realistic. The university, go to university, get a job in finance. That was more so what everybody, or what my life was kind of moving towards. And one day, a buddy of mine, I'm at IU, he says, why don't you go to culinary school? Like, this is clearly what you're passionate about. And he planted the seed. And then I started to kind of think about it and look around, and maybe I could work with food, And so I got a job working in a kitchen, because before I applied to culinary school, I had to know if I loved cooking as much for somebody else as I did just for myself. So absolutely loved it. I had a summer job working in a kitchen. I just felt like that passion, that fire come back, because I had worked in offices before, and, I felt myself dim. So I go to culinary school. I'm absolutely obsessed with it. I started working in kitchens, and, I'm doing this for a few years. And then there's a shift of, wait a second, I'm not seeing my family on Christmas. I'm working Thanksgiving. I'm never seeing anybody. When everybody is going to enjoy and entertain, that's when we're working. And so I had this kind of existential crisis at 22, 23. And it was this moment of, I don't love anything else, but can I do this for the rest of my life? Like, what, and I'm in culinary school. And so restaurants were where you were working. And so I had this moment of like, can this look different? And not long after that, I got a job offer at a manufacturing plant. And so I was going to be working in research and development in their manufacturing plant. And it kind of opened the door of, maybe I can still work with food, but it can look a little bit different. And so I moved back to Indiana, because I was in Chicago at culinary school, moved back to Indiana. I'm working at a manufacturing plant, and I'm the one that's working directly with all the brands. And so that's when like the wheels started turning, because I was like, maybe I could be the brand. Like, maybe I could create a brand, so I could create something, but I could still work with food, and it could still look a little bit more of a normal life, versus the restaurant industry is very, really long hours, really late hours, always on the weekends, right? So I moved to California, fast forward, and I start working as a food manufacturer, food merchandiser. So I'm working with tons of brands and I'm going into stores because I was like, okay, I have the culinary experience. Now I have the product development and manufacturing. Now, if I really want to create a brand, I've got to be in stores, talking to buyers, talking to managers, kind of merchandising. For those of you who are listening that don't know what a food merchandiser is, we're kind of like the third party sales team. We're making sure things are executed in store, all of the end caps or displays. Like, we're the people that are working with the brands to execute whatever goals that brand might have, right? Visibility, making sure the bags are straight and perfect, like your feet on the ground, right? So I started working as a food merchandiser, and that's when the beginning of this brand, the inception of this brand, started. It all came from a conversation with a buddy of mine who's vegan. I had been working on different product ideas, just having fun, kind of messing with cracker ideas or using, olive seed powder, or, I was just having some fun, seeing what I could create, what's out there, what's not out there. And this conversation with a friend of mine happened 2019. He was like, man, I haven't had a sour cream and onion chip in like 10 years. It's like, it's my favorite flavor. Nobody makes it. And so, another moment of like the light bulb goes on. And I started thinking, like, that seems like pretty normal. We have so many amazing dairy-free products. Like, why is nobody making just a dairy-free version of this like classic flavor? So I start, looking around in stores. I'm in Whole Foods, I'm in Sprouts, talking with managers, and lo and behold, nobody just made a dairy-free potato chip line. So like all your favorite flavors without dairy. Even a barbecue sometimes has a whey protein, or your nacho flavor has cheddar cheese in it. And so I got to work. I took the Lay's potato chip, sour cream and onion, and I flipped over the back of the bag and I circled everything that had dairy in it, any kind of preservative, binder, whatever it might be. I circled it and I started recreating that flavor. But I knew that if I was going to market this as a sour cream and onion potato chip, it had to taste identical. Like, it had to be the same, but it had to be the same, if not better, because I think for any like better for you product to like really, really succeed, it's like equally, if not better than the dairy counterpart or the less healthy counterpart, because then there's no reason a consumer wouldn't buy yours, especially if it's the same price. So I got to work. It is something that I had skills in because I used to do it at the manufacturing plant. We'd have a brand come in and say, hey, I want to sell this marinara sauce that's already being sold in retail, or I want to recreate that. And so I would go into the kitchen. The nutrition facts, the ingredient label only gives you so much information. They'll have spices or they'll kind of leave out things and group them. So I knew how to match flavors. So I took a Lay's sour cream and onion potato chip and I worked on it for like 4 months. Beginning of, or yeah, it was 2019. Like spring, summer of 2019, I'm like matching the flavor. And then there was this one day, I'll never forget it, because I started with cashew flour because that's how you make vegan cheese, right? But cashew flour is crazy expensive. I started with nutritional yeast because, again, that's how you make, typically if you're in a kitchen, that's how you make vegan cheese. Really, really expensive. So it took a lot of trial and error of like, how do I recreate this in an affordable way? So because I wanted to sell a potato chip that was the same cost or similar cost as what you expect a potato chip to be, because I wanted to create something that was accessible. I worked at the restaurant industry. I worked in a 2 Michelin star restaurant. So I was like, how do I take all of that and make something that's better for you, accessible, affordable for everybody? I wanted to group that together because I didn't want these high quality ingredients or clean products to be like out of reach, for everybody. So it took me a little time, but it was in the summer. I think it was the summer of 2019. I'm living with my sister at the time in California. And I had matched it. Like, I had gotten a potato chip that looked exactly like a Lay's. It looked exactly like a Lay's, but it was less greasy. It was less calories. It didn't have that like filminess. Like when you're eating like a Lay's, didn't have that like super thick filminess or stay on your fingers. And my sister's coming home from work. I know she's on her way. And I'm standing there with the bowl like, right in front of the door. So when she opens the door, she looks down because she'd been my taste tester for months at this point. She looks down and we look at each other because like it looked like the real deal. And then she tried it and it was amazing. And so then I started getting Sprouts managers, Whole Foods managers. I started getting them to try it because as a merchandiser, you become friends with these people, you know? And so I started market testing with them first, you know, like, is this something that you would buy? Is this something your consumers would buy or customers would buy? Do you like it? What should it cost? What should the margins be, etc.? So I started doing all of that, looking for manufacturers. And along that journey, I realized that manufacturing minimums were just out of control. You know, they were like 100,000 units and the risk was too high. I didn't know if people were going to buy this. Chips are a very competitive category, as we all know. They have those like major players like Kettle, Lay's, whatever it may be. So I knew that there was a big risk going into it. I knew that I was going to have to really establish a market fit before I launched into a facility. So I'm living in LA at the time, and I start looking for shared kitchens. So maybe I could like build out my own manufacturing plant and I could make them by hand. So I went that direction, and I rented a commercial kitchen in South Central LA. It was there was some brands on this company's website that I recognized because I was merchandising for one of the brands specifically. So I was like, okay, they're legit. So I go in. They have the smallest kitchen space. They have 175 square feet. I was like, okay, that's it because it's already too expensive. But if I'm going to make this a reality, I have to start that way. So I found my wholesalers, you know, there's a wholesaler that's open 12 a.m. to 9 a.m. My merchandising job is during the day. And so I was like, okay, let's see if we can do this. So I rent the kitchen. I rent it, you know, month over month, super tiny. I start crafting this manufacturing plant. So I get the fryers and, you know, I have kitchen experience and manufacturing experience. And then I'd watched countless YouTube videos on, you know, potato chip production lines. So I was like, okay, how do I take this big production and or go the opposite, like make it super, super tiny to fit in this little space. So I'm going to Home Depot, I'm getting like big plastic sheets for a seasoning tunnel, and I'm doing like the whole thing, right? So I'm at the wholesaler, 5, 6 a.m., get my potatoes and my oil. I'd already gotten the seasoning, you know, from this other wholesaler that I work with still to this day. I started working with them at the beginning. Thank God they took a chance on me and would sell me 50 pounds at a time. Right now we're doing 2,000 pounds at a time. So we have grown quite a bit. But I got all of that. I would go to the wholesaler, get all my ingredients, work the merchandising job for, you know, 8 hours. And then I would go to my kitchen in the afternoons and work all night making potato chips. And I would drop samples in between. And I started building the brand that way, seeing that, like, is this going to catch on? Do people like this? Do people want this? And I was doing that the first year of the brand. I had that overlap of my other job that was paying the bills and then my brand. And then actually, it was a chain account through Pod, which was the reason that I decided to quit my job and like go full time on this. That's so funny. I didn't think about that. But it was a moment of I'd gotten, you know, one of your retailers, Foxtrot, had said yes. And they sent me a monthly forecast. And it was so much bigger than I was able to produce in my 6 hours after work. You know, so I was like, okay. I talked with my sister and I was really scared to take that leap of going full time on this, but I knew if I didn't give it a shot, I wasn't going to be able to grow in the way that I needed to get into a big facility. And so, you know, her and I had a real conversation of like, okay, what do, finances, what is reality? What does the brand look like? Where are we going? Where do we need to go? And I made the decision that day that, okay, I'm going to give it my all. And 3 months later, so I quit my job. 3 months later, I got another retailer that sent me a monthly forecast. That was the reason I was able to get into a big facility. So 3 months after that, and then 5 months after that, we launched in a big facility. And now it's, the fun part. I'm not chained to a kitchen where I'm working
Right.
100 hours a week. We get to sell and we get to grow, and I've created sour cream and onion, sea salt and vinegar. We've got a backyard barbecue. It's my childhood favorite, sweet and smoky. What do I say? We've got a nacho inferno, which is a spicy nacho. It's like that nacho cheesiness, but we use cayenne and jalapeno for the spice. And then we just launched 2 new flavors, which the sweet and spicy habanero sweetened with dates, so we don't use any sugar, and it's got like a not as sharp sweetness. It's like very like mild, beautiful sweetness from the dates. And then super spicy because we use habanero and we do use jalapeno. And then the Zamboni bag, which is I've wanted to do this flavor since the very beginning because, but we had to launch with just the ones that had cheese or dairy powders. Not we had to, but the idea was if this is going to be like the dairy-free brand,
Right.
let's launch with those 4 flavors that have dairy in them, and then we'll start building. And the Zamboni bag was in that original idea. And now, I mean, it's quickly become our bestseller. It's sweet, smoky, tart. It's got a little kick in it because I put a little jalapeno in it. It's a rainbow bag. It's absolutely beautiful. But yeah,
Yeah, it looks cool. And
that's long-winded.
everybody wants to know what it is, so there's a mystery element to it
Yeah,
too. So
yeah,
no, I think the neat thing about your story is on the one hand, it's very specific to
yeah,
a very specific project that you had,
yeah,
and you reverse engineered a better for you potato
yeah,
chip. But the process that you used, I mean, that the combination of art and science that you used is universal. Like somebody in any part of our industry could follow that process and do all of that legwork that you did and end up with that same type of result if they're willing to put that much into it, right?
yeah,
It's there, right? There the idea of improving, innovating, enhancing something that's already clearly has a market, right? You don't have to guess whether or not there's a market for a potato chip. You're building a better version that the consumer is going to want.
yeah,
So on one hand, you're taking a big risk by creating a brand, but there's a certain certainty. Like if you can go get this job done, the market is there. You don't have to create the market for what a potato chip is. You just built the better mousetrap, right? So
exactly.
that's
I
cool.
think I think there's something special too about, like people are always going to want their favorite products, right? But now we're moving, and it's been studied for years now, but we're moving even further into like, can we have better versions to all of those classics while we also, all these incredible innovative brands that are making totally new products. But
Yep.
let's bring all the classics with us,
Yeah, I agree.
you know?
I say all the time on LinkedIn, I want people to make delicious, high
Yeah.
quality hot pockets and
Yeah.
Twinkies and Pop
Yeah.
Tarts. Like, let's
Yeah.
have let's just relive
Yeah.
the 20th century, but do it better this time.
Exactly.
It's gonna be fine with me,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah,
So,
and we were able to create a product at the right cost.
yeah,
It's the same cost as all those other
right,
favorite big brands.
right.
And so there's no reason not to buy.
There's at that point, there's no excuse
Yeah.
whatsoever,
Yeah,
right?
and we're certified vegan, we're non-GMO project verified. Everything in the product is also kosher. It's cholesterol free. Our bags are made of recyclable material. We started working with a company that's going to deep dive carbon emissions of the brand so we can create the most sustainable brand. Like there's no reason not to try and like do business better and create better products. We have all the resources and it's just so fun,
Right.
create like my favorite childhood snack and we're just going to make it better. And hopefully,
That's it.
God willing, we get to expand into other products and recreate. I have tons of people that'll reach out and say, hey, can you make this? Could you make
Sure.
this? I
Yeah.
had some vegan. Can you make
Yeah.
Captain Crunch? It's my
Yeah.
child's favorite. And we're
Sure.
like, let's,
Well,
yeah,
you can follow that same method if you just
yeah,
had infinite amounts of resources. You could, like,
exactly.
you really could. So I'm really
Exactly.
interested to see where that goes. All right,
Yeah.
so we're out of time.
Yeah.
I would talk for hours about this. I
Yeah.
think it's really fun. But
Yeah.
before we go,
Yeah.
where are some of the places
Yeah.
that customers can find your chips on the shelf and try them out?
Absolutely. So we just recently launched Whole Foods So Packs. So if you're in Hawaii, Southern California, Arizona, and Nevada, you can find us at Whole Foods. If you're in Southern California, you can also find us at Bristol, Gelson's. Next month, we're launching Harmon's, and then we're also launching with Pod Foods King Supers. So you'll be able to find 4 flavors: the sea salt, sour cream and onion, sea salt and vinegar. I'm sorry, sour cream and onion, sea salt, Zamboni, and the sweet and spicy habanero at King Supers. And then, Nationwide Independence, we're launching Amazon next month as well. So we'll have all the flavors. We'll have case packs on Amazon and on our website as well.
Awesome. All
Yeah.
right. Congratulations
Thank
so
you.
far and good luck on
Thank
next
you
year.
so much. Thank you for having me.